welcome. And we still have an ad queuing up. It will end in 11 seconds. And we're going to have a special show for you today. Today, I'm your host, Joseph Alexander, and we are here with Edwin Kim. And we're going to be discussing something very interesting for OMG, our meditation generation.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Actually, do we really have butterflies watching the show?
I hope so.
Okay, good. As long as they're watching.
Yeah, well, and the caterpillars too, because
Right.
this is hoping that they can become butterflies.
Yes.
So last week we talked about meditation in popular culture, and we talked about how it's depicted in movies and some of the preconceptions that people might have. And we got a couple of questions from people about meditation and also about meaning in life. So we're going to actually address that because I thought it was very interesting. Basically, someone asked, if I want to do something meaningful, how can meditation help? I think they were thinking that meditation on its own seems kind of useless. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And that person mentioned that meditation seems to be done by people who are hyper-focused on spirituality. Do I have to give up everything and meditate if I want to make a difference in the world? So today I brought my friend Edwin here to talk about this because he has a background as a Dhan Yoga instructor and a Dhan Yoga center manager, but now he's a media guy and he's integrated these things into his life. And why don't you tell us about your take on that?
Well, yeah, I write and direct videos now, a lot of them related to meditation. But I think that's actually a very good question because there's a big preconception about people who do meditation and why they do it. For me, meditation was never an ends to a means. I was never interested in learning meditation for the sake of meditation.
But you're in your family, people meditated. Your mother meditated.
Yes.
So you had some exposure before you started it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But for me, when I became a Dhan Yoga instructor in the first place, I was more interested in how I could help people and how I could improve myself. And naturally, to do that, I had to know myself better, and that's what became my meditation. So it wasn't really me trying to learn meditation, it's what I just ended up doing. And I think that's really the biggest preconception about meditation, is that it's a certain method that you do, that you learn, and you sit there and do certain things. But really it's about being aware of what's going on around you, who you are, most simply, and being able to see from a different perspective, maybe from a higher plane, to see things more broadly, and using that to improve yourself.
So are you talking about you're watching yourself, observing yourself? Is that what you mean?
In a way, yeah. I think that's one of the first steps of true meditation, is to just be aware of what you're doing and where your thoughts are coming from, where your emotions are coming from, and is it a conscious choice on your part for that to happen? Or is it just something that's happening because you're living in a world of habits that you've created?
So I don't think that that's what people get when they see others meditating. They see some sage on a mountain or someone in a cave,
Right.
and they think that that person is just going into a trance or some other world. But what you're saying is that sitting or whatever they're doing is really all about them observing themselves, observing their thoughts,
Yeah.
etc.
I think everybody meditates in their own way.
Okay.
It's really emphasized by those aha moments in your life when you have that realization of something that's within you, something about your situation. And I really think that's the important thing about meditation. And it can come at any moment. But that one moment when you have that realization, you feel like you're kind of lost in time, where everything stops. And I think that's really, that's real meditation. It can happen in your everyday life. It's not something where you sit there, and it can happen, of course, through practice. And that's why people practice or that's why I think people should practice meditation, is to get that more frequently and to get more deep realizations.
So it sounds like you're saying that your practice of meditation was just a way to train yourself how to think differently, how to observe differently. So that you can do that same thing if you're, let's say, working in media, or if you're walking down the street, or you're eating, like you still kind of have that approach to the way
Absolutely.
you observe life.
Yeah, absolutely. Growing up, I thought, like many people, these are my traits, this is my personality, and these are my characteristics, and that's just how I am. But I realized through meditation that, oh, that might not necessarily be true, and I can see, why are my characteristics this way? Why do I think a certain way? And do I really want that? So in doing that, you can become more of the creator of your life, of what you do, of what you think. So that was a huge realization for me.
So that gets to the question of, how can meditation be meaningful in life? How can you do something meaningful? And I think you mentioned that this was really a step toward you helping more people. So
Right.
how is that so?
Uh, for instance, there are people who just, by some, uh, just the way things went in their life, and just the way their build is, and the way they think, they have this unbelievable will to do something good for humanity, let's say. But it's not like that for all of us. But many of many people, almost everybody I know, want to do something that's very meaningful and good and contributing to society. So for me to get to that state, I wasn't just like that by nature. I had to dig deep into myself and see what I really wanted, and how I was going to do it. So for me, it wasn't. I definitely don't think anybody should just go and meditate all day long forever. I don't think that does anybody any good. But for me to be the most effective and useful person to helping other people, I had to know myself better, and I had to change certain things that were obstacles to helping people.
So it sounds like you didn't like become Gandhi overnight. You didn't start wearing a loincloth and shave your head. And
Right. Well, I'm still not Gandhi, I don't think, of course. But yeah, even Gandhi, you know, he went through so many trials in his life to get to where he was. And for him, it was fueled by real life things in his society and he found a mission for himself to help people. And I wasn't in that kind of situation. I grew up in an upper middle class neighborhood, but I always felt like there was something more that I needed to do. And but sometimes for me it's easy. I'm kind of a techie guy, so I like to sit in front of the computer and I get lost in it, and I like to do things that are my hobbies. But I always felt like those things are great to do sometimes, but isn't there more I can do? And how can I become more active in doing those things? And sure, yeah, every now and then when I'm really feeling the passion, I can do that. But to do that for a prolonged period of time, you have to plan it out. You have to uh, create your own schedule for the future, so to speak. And I found when my head is clear through meditation or through breathing, I can just do that more easily.
so going back to the question I had about Gandhi, I was joking, but I think you're right. Everyone actually has some innate desire to help, their country, help a lot of people, and they don't know that they can. And I think when we look at the history of someone like Gandhi, he was actually not that successful in the beginning. He was
Right.
actually an unsuccessful lawyer, at least when he went back to India, and he found his sense of purpose, and and he also basically used maybe influences from his family, from great philosophers like Tagore or even Tolstoy, and together he fueled and created something new. And I think that's the thing that I feel like we should really touch on, and it probably speaks to what you do, is that in order to do anything meaningful, be a part of any great social change or personal change, you have to be creative. So that person, they ask, do I have to give up everything and meditate if I want to make a difference in the world? But I think the reality is, if you want to make a difference in the world, you have to create something new. And to create that, you have to be willing to let go of what you know to create something new. And tell me how you did that.
Yeah, absolutely. When people who are very dedicated to a cause and they're passionate about it, uh, you know, all those people we respect, they they don't think about, oh, should I give us this and sacrifice this to do this. They were just able to find something that they're passionate about and do it. So for them, it's not that hard to dedicate a lot of their time to do these things. For example, for me, just this is an example of how meditation helped me. When I was a teenager, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I definitely was not happy with what I was doing. Just going to school and going through the motions. And I used to, I had a lot of friends and things, but I always felt lonely, and I would just wander and walk around on the streets and just look for answers. But I realized later on in my life that meditation helps you to really look inside. Sometimes I think that's really what it's about. It's about looking inside. Like maybe you want to help and you want to contribute to society, but you don't know what that is. You don't know how. So if you can meditate, you can really ask yourself those questions and have that time to really sort things through on your own, rather than looking aimlessly outside and wandering outside, which sometimes helps too, of course. But yeah, I think it's I think it's an interesting question that many people have about, do I have to sacrifice everything to meditate or to work on a movement? And at the same time, it's one of those questions that once you are there and you figure it out, it's no longer a question. It's almost like an invalid point. So if you know that you're passionate about something and you find something that you want to really do, that's just what happens. It becomes your priority. That's all it is. So there's no need to force it. There's no need to be like, I should be a better person. But if you don't, that's why meditation is so important, because you can get to that point where you are passionate about it. It's not just an act, or it's not just setting the bar too high for yourself and feeling like you don't meet up to that standard.
Well, I think that's a good segue to remind everyone who's watching that if you look at the right hand a corner of the screen, you see the check-in and chat. So if you have any questions for us, feel free to type them right there and let us know what you're thinking. And we're going to keep talking about this subject, but we really want to hear your thoughts. One thing that I think about when I hear what you say is that most people feel like meditation isn't fun, but you sound like someone who you seem to have fun in life and you seem to be enjoying things. How is that possible?
Yeah, that's exactly it for me. Meditation isn't fun when that's what you're trying to do, I think.
Okay.
If you're like, oh, I gotta meditate, that's not a lot of fun. It's really just a tool for something you need to do. It's just like a hammer. If you're sitting there looking at the hammer, learning how to use it, and you're just nailing things, but there's no purpose to what you're nailing, it's really not a lot of fun, I don't think.
So purpose is the key.
Yeah.
A sense of purpose.
Yeah. I've never meditated for the sake of meditating. I meditated because I need it for something.
Okay.
Because I need to relax. Because I need to. I think that's
ignore that ad.
I think that's where most people come from. When they meditate, they have something on their minds. Their minds are too busy, or they have some stress, or they've had some tragic experience in their lives, or whatever it may be, whether it's physical, whether it's mental or spiritual. So yeah, I just say, meditation can help really just activate all the systems in your brain and in your body so that it can function properly the way you want it to. Kind of unleash that unlimited potential within yourself.
Well, so what's the most surprising thing that you have learned during or as a result of meditation?
Wow, that brings me back. One of the first real aha moments I had, I remember.
Aha!
Yeah, is I how old? I think I was 17, or I was in a I was a thinker, I guess. I overthink, thunk everything.
Overthought, think, thought, thunk.
Yeah. So I used to overthink everything, and I got to this point in my life where I started thinking about the universe and how big it was and how insignificant the Earth and I were, and how nothing really mattered. And that can make you very depressed when it feels like there's no point to anything you're doing. It's like, why am I struggling? Why am I going through all these hardships if it's all for naught? So, but I used to be that guy who thought he knew everything. You know, I was Mr. Know-It-All. But I remember that first moment, I felt so alone and so lonely. And my first real big awakening, I remember saying in my own mind, I was so desperate. I said, I don't know. Like, I don't know the answer. I don't know what I need to do. And that was like a huge burden off my shoulders, just to accept that I didn't know. And that opened my mind to learn new things. It opened my mind to learn from others and connect to others. And I think that was really the beginning, the starting point of my evolution as a human being.
So it's like meditation helped you create space in your life. First of all, by creating space in your mind, then you started having more space in your life.
And that's another thing is, when that happened, I was definitely meditating to get to that point of desperation. But I wasn't trying to meditate. I was just so desperate. I needed something in my life. You know, I needed some answer to get on with my life. And I think that's the most important key. And one of the hardest things about meditation is to have that deep sincerity where you really, you know, put everything into it. And when you're just trying to meditate and, you know, make the posture and try to quiet your mind, it's very hard to do. And I think that's the hardest thing, is to keep that sincere, devoted mind when you meditate.
So you must have purpose. So I think that goes back to that person's question about, do I have to give up everything in the world to meditate? But basically, you have to create space. And so in order to make any changes in your life or to make a difference in the world, you need to create that space. And also, I think you mentioned this a little bit. You have to recognize that you are the creator, that you create the life that you're living, that is actually your perspective and your actions that contribute to the circumstances that you're in.
Yeah, like we talk about mindful living on Life Particle TV, and I think that's exactly what that is. It's not about just what you're doing, but if you're mindful and you're aware of what you're doing, no matter what you're doing, it's really a type of meditation. You're meditating at that moment. And if that's the case, you're going to know, is this what I want to be doing or not? You don't have to judge yourself. You don't have to say, oh, I should be doing this instead of this. You can just naturally progress to action from thought.
Right. I think, I hate to get trippy, but when you talk about that, it makes me think about, warp theory and warp field theory. Basically, the way warp theory is supposed to work is that you're able to move faster in space and time by creating, an opening in the space before you and moving it to the space behind you, like adding more space behind you. And basically, our sense of how long it takes to achieve something or what you can do with your life can all change if you start to meditate and connect to your creativity, create your own personal warp field. So if you think that you are only a student or you're only a kid or you're only poor, all of that can change, and it can change relatively quickly if you can engage your own special warp drive through meditation. So someone asked a question. Thank you for asking this. As someone who hasn't meditated before and who's still lost and wandering, how can I get started? So you said you started when you were 17. What got you started? Was it just that you were worried and thinking, or was it that you watched your mom and you had a sense of what you needed to do?
Yeah, actually, as a teenager, everything your mom does, you don't want to do.
So, moms don't listen to that.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't following my mom's practice, but I bet you've already done meditation. You know, the fact that you wondered that means that you've thought about yourself, you've looked at yourself, and that's meditation. So you've already started. And luckily, we have something like Life Particle TV, where you don't have to know anything, and all you have to do is watch. And the reason that works, even though sometimes you feel like you should be in nature and not in front of a computer, but technology is also a tool that we can use. And the great thing is, when you're watching something like a movie, you're focused and you're in that moment, which means you don't have extraneous thoughts. And that's the first step to meditation. So if you watch a meditation video on Life Particle TV and you can get there and you can just focus on that video, you've already started. And I think from there, sky's the limit.
So I want to address that point, which is that this idea about nature and technology being separated and opposites, that's a false dichotomy in my eyes. And everything that we have can be used for our growth and development. And meditation is an age-old, millennial-old technology that humans have within themselves to grow and change. But the computers, the internet, the videos, everything that we have now can also serve that purpose, especially if you put them together. So Spring Edwin is mentioning Life Particle TV, which is a website that he works on, and actually which you might be seeing this show on. But that is all about presenting people with new ways to get started meditating, to learn about meditation. So you're right. No one needs to feel lost or they have to be an expert. You can just start. You can just watch. You don't have to go to a mountain. You don't even have to close your eyes. You can just find a few minutes in front of your computer, and you can learn how to start meditating.
And especially for someone like me, I'm very visual. So when I see something, it helps me even now if I go into the mountains or something and I want to connect with nature. If I have that visual aid in my brain, I can much more easily bring it up if I've seen it before.
So, okay, everybody, like you said, can focus and watch a movie or, watch a video. But I still think that people have to deal with all the racing thoughts in their mind. Okay, I see that image on the film, and it makes me think about what happened when I was 4, and then I think about my favorite cereal and how my mother didn't let me have the prize, and then the thoughts just go on and on. How do they stop these racing thoughts, when they're meditating?
This is one of the biggest obstacles, I think, for beginners. And I'll say it right now. You cannot stop your thoughts by trying to stop your thoughts. There's absolutely no way more thinking about not thinking is going to stop your thoughts. It's impossible.
It's like fighting fire with fire, huh?
Yeah, I think everybody who's meditated has tried this. So, yeah, that's impossible. The best way is to focus on something. Give yourself a point to focus on. Like I said, when you're in watching a movie, you're focused on what's going on. But when you're meditating, usually you're trying to focus inside yourself. And sometimes if you're not used to that, that's hard. That's why I recommend trying something physical. Do a more dynamic meditation. There are meditations where you're shouting a phrase, a question that you have about yourself. Or if you want something, if you want to gain courage, you can shout something like, I have courage. There are many things. Also, a really good way is through the sense of touch.
Okay.
And
so that means you start touching things, touching people?
Yeah, no. Actually, we have a kind of sixth sense. It's related to your sense of touch, but...
Oh, the kinesthetic sense.
Yes, but it's the sense of... People call it the sense of energy, but when you... It is very related, because it's still electric waves going into your brain.
The chemical energy of your own body.
Yeah. And sometimes you can start out with physical movement. Like if you want to focus on your hands, and usually if you just put your hands out and pay attention, you can feel something, some tingling or warmth. If not, clap. You can clap and then you can start feeling something. Or if you want to feel on your lower abdomen, move it and you can feel it. So get yourself to focus on a certain point until you're good enough to just do it without doing those movements. And eventually you can do that.
So I realize that there are many meditation systems who teach the focus on the breath, which is very key. If you have the racing thoughts, you can always come back to your breath. Excuse me, but I think the point that you're making is, for some people, even focusing on the breath is so subtle that it's really difficult for them to stay there.
Yeah.
So by using touch or clapping or body movement and keep focusing on how your body feels, that's probably an easier place for most people to start. And I think that goes against many preconceptions about meditation, that you can actually move and meditate, that you don't actually have to sit still. And I know for myself, when I was younger, one of the most beneficial meditative practices I had was when I combined walking with sitting meditation. So, I'd sit for an hour and then walk for an hour, sit for an hour. I mean, you don't have to do it for an hour, but even a 15-minute walk, and if you can just focus on your footsteps and the feeling in your legs or your knees, is a great way to move away from that whole chain of thoughts.
And I'm somebody who grew up with ADD.
Okay.
And I can still have trouble focusing on anything that I think is boring, anything I don't think I want to focus on. So it's been a huge issue for me. So that's why the dynamic meditation really helped. And if I can do that, literally anybody can do it.
So here's another question from our viewers. This person asked, how can I make meditation more exciting? And I think this goes right to your question, or excuse me, your statement there about having ADD or ADHD and not being able to focus on something that's boring. So how is it that you can make meditation more exciting?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's not the meditation itself that gets exciting. It's exciting because you're trying to do something, like the hammer comparison we did, the metaphor. If you're just nailing something, it's not exciting. But if you're nailing something where you're building a house, you're building something you really want to build, then it's super exciting. Every nail is like getting closer to your final goal. And depending on how exciting that purpose and goal is in your life, that's how much you put into that meditation. That's how important it becomes, and that's how excited you are to overcome the limitations within yourself and to learn more about yourself. It really is exciting.
Okay. So, it means that if you pick something that you already like to do, maybe you can turn that into meditation.
Absolutely.
So maybe you don't like to run or walk or hike, but maybe you like to ride a bike, and so you can turn that into a fun meditative practice.
Absolutely.
Or dancing, because most people actually like to dance, but if they can change the way they dance and use it as a way to focus their thoughts and focus on their body and relax, then maybe that dancing can be an exciting form of meditation.
Not even something that active. What about things everybody does every day, like eating?
But eating's exciting.
Eating's not exciting, but it can be a meditation, and it becomes a lot more fun than just eating, and it's also much more healthy for you. Or even sitting. Like if you're just sitting and doing your work, eventually your back starts hurting, you're fidgeting. But if you're aware, is my back straight? Am I breathing properly? Am I relaxed? And you don't have really much time to be bored. And at the same time,
are you sure? If we do eating meditation, that means I'm counting my chews. 1, 2, 3, 4. Isn't that boring? How's that exciting?
It's exciting because once you get into it, you feel everything. You become so sensitive to all the senses, and you just realize how exciting everything around you is. Just at some point, you can feel the air move around you. You can hear things you couldn't hear before. You can taste things in the food that you never tasted before.
What are you eating?
And it really becomes exciting. Imagine yourself, like that movie Inner Space, where you become this tiny, tiny thing, and you're traveling in this huge world of the human body. That's kind of what it feels like. All of a sudden, it's this huge, amazing new world.
I like that inner space metaphor because basically we take ourselves, our own life, for granted. Even if it's like what is happening in our mouths when we're eating, like the taste, or even feeling. So I remember one of the Buddhist meditations that I came across was exactly this, about sensing the spaces in your body. Starting off with the fact that we know that we have space in our ears and our noses and our mouth. You know, those are like openings that we have, but beyond that, we have spaces all over our body. So there are between the toes, between the fingers, you know, the armpits, under the neck, the chin. And if you start just focusing on all the spaces that you have in your body, it actually shifts the way you sense your body, and it actually, again, can change the way you think and feel. But it sounds like we're telling people to use their imagination.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it all starts.
Are you saying that? Okay. Are you saying that meditation is a tool of the imagination?
I don't know if it's necessarily a tool of the imagination, but imagination definitely plays a huge role, because you can't, sometimes, you know, when you just focus on something, you visualize it. Well, here's the biggest issue. People in general, I think, regard imagination as something that's fake and intangible.
Right.
But when you imagine something very vividly and you apply energy to that by focusing on it, your brain doesn't know the difference, and it'll create a real response. So, you know, everybody's, I think, heard those stories about athletes, you know, who are in a cast, but they would imagine themselves, for example, a baseball player pitching the ball over and over again, and when they took the cast off, their muscles hadn't atrophied. Your body will make these responses, and your imagination is so powerful, actually. You can't do anything without imagination. Everything we've created in this world, so sure, some things happen by accident, but for the most part have been created through somebody's imagination. Something somebody saw and wanted and made steps and plans to move toward. So if meditation can help that part, sure, you can't, it's not, maybe a lot of people think, oh, I only have creative imagination, but it never turns into anything. Well, all you have to do is connect your actions with that. So imagination, I think, is one of the most important parts of meditation and in our lives in general.
So that brings us back full circle to what we were saying about creativity and being creative in your life and creating change, and meditation really is a key to that because of the space and the possibilities that you're able to engage in. So anyway, I think we're about to wrap up, but I really appreciate you coming to join us, Edwin, and I hope you come back again.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure.
And everybody, thank you for watching our Meditation Generation, OMG. Look for us here on Ustream, and get our messages on Facebook. And please send us your questions, and we look forward to hearing from you. And have a wonderful day, and keep meditating.